Let's go to our Jackie Alemany at the White House. Also joining us, senior data editor and columnist for CT Insider, Philip Bump, and former federal prosecutor Brendan Ballou, CEO of the Public Integrity Project. Jackie, the president raised a lot of eyebrows with that "I love the inflation" comment, but he's been saying eye-raising comments like that more of late. Let's take a listen.
I don't think about Americans' financial situation.
I don't care about the midterms.
I love the inflation. I don't care about Americans' financial situation. I don't care about the midterms. This president isn't known for staying on message, but what kind of alarm bells is this ringing in the White House?
Yeah, Anna, quite frankly, this is something that officials in the White House have grown accustomed to and have actually built their strategy around, as our colleague Jake Traylor reported a few weeks ago, and something that sort of has been a consistent mantra for Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, is to let Trump be Trump. And that, as a White House official told Jake, there are two tracks. There's what the president says, and then as a staff member, there's what you message to the administration. And there's sort of this feeling that is baked into Trump's favorability, his popularity with his voters and his supporters, that he is not going to say the right things at the right time. He's not going to stay on message. As a White House official told me several weeks ago, too, as we were previewing Republicans' midterm strategy, their midterm strategy is not contingent on the president's message discipline, only on the fact that he's actually out there on the ground campaigning. Just a few weeks ago, he had made another, what in a former life we would have called a gaffe, saying that he didn't think about Americans' financial situations. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. You cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That was with regards to the war in Iran when he was asked a question about it. But I do think the fact that Trump, shortly after he made that comment yesterday on a call to the New York Post to try to clarify what he said, was sort of telling. He said in an interview that actually what he was trying to say was he loved the fact that inflation wasn't higher, and that he predicted that last month's 4.2% annual rate would be even higher as a cost in association with the war. He took that as an opportunity to sort of pat himself on the back for keeping energy prices lower, and he's not completely wrong about that. Oil is still under $100 a barrel. That is lower than what a lot of economists predicted earlier this year. That being said, that is not due to the president's administration policies. It is, in fact, due to a number of external factors, such as China redirecting their oil strategy. But at the end of the day, this is something that his Republican colleagues on the Hill are still going to have to clean up themselves. Yeah. You had Mike Johnson doing that yesterday as well.
Jackie Alemany, thank you for laying that out for us. Philip, 5 months out from the midterms here, what kind of damage could comments like "I love the inflation" do?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, the question isn't really how it's playing in the White House. It's how it's playing for all the Republicans who are going to be on the ballot. It has long been the case that Donald Trump's focus, and when he says he doesn't care about the midterms, I think there's an element of truth to that. He is concerned about his own position, and to the extent that he cares about the midterms, it is ensuring that he doesn't have the Democrats nipping at his heels. But he's certainly doing them no favors. And, the Republican strategy may be to have Donald Trump show up and campaign for them. I think that's not a great strategy anyway, because he's terribly unpopular. But saying things like this will simply reinforce to voters that Donald Trump ran on affordability. He talked about groceries. He talked about all these things. And yet here we are with prices even higher in some cases than they were when he became president. And that's unavoidable. And it's the Republicans on the ballot that have to worry about it.
Yeah, here's a refresher on some of those 2024 campaign promises.
Prices will come down. You just watch. They'll come down, and they'll come down fast.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down.
That means we're going down and getting gasoline below $2 a gallon.
Philip, how are other Republicans going to address this disconnect? Does the rest of the party still remember James Carville's famous quip, "It's the economy, stupid"?
Yeah, I don't know what they can do, honestly. I mean, they can hope, first of all, that gas prices do start to come back down if there's some sort of resolution in Iran, which hopefully has effects on inflation, that the effects of tariffs don't continue to keep prices high. But there's not a lot they can do. And so one thing that we're seeing is a lot of Republicans just sort of doubling down and hoping they can turn out the base, get core Republican voters who like Donald Trump no matter what he does to come out to the polls. But that's a really risky strategy for a lot of Republicans who aren't in solid red districts, especially after they spent the past year drawing districts in which Republicans, they have more Republican seats, but a lot of them have a little slimmer margins that they can bank on. It could be very problematic for the party.
Brendan, the president seems to be dismissing inflation concerns and Americans' economic woes, but we know he and his family have made a lot of money since he returned to office. Can you break down how they're profiting from the presidency and the legal concerns it's raising?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost unbelievable. I believe the New York Times estimated that the president made something like $2.8 billion in just his first year. You can break it down into his investments in crypto companies, where you had a politically connected sovereign wealth fund buy $1 billion in his favored cryptocurrency. You have his various development projects in foreign countries, where countries are giving him favorable business deals in return for instance, concessions on tariffs and so forth. And then you have the various side deals that he's doing with, for instance, Paramount, allegedly to secure regulatory approval for that acquisition, and TikTok approving a sale to various of his friends and allies to take control of that company's U.S. assets. So, it seems like every policy choice that the president makes is also a opportunity for him to make money. We're suing most recently over this MMA fight that's scheduled on the White House lawn that is deeply corrupt, and one where the president and his allies stand to make an enormous amount of money.
Instead of focusing on the economy for everyday Americans, Philip, the president has prioritized all these different pet projects like Trump's Grand Washington Arch, and new National Park Services documents show the White House wants this built within 2 to 3 years, with workers putting in 20 hours a day year round. Is there anything else in the country that could probably benefit from 20 hours a day of work?
Yeah. If you think about the amount of resources in terms of time and money and the change that you could affect, but the target here is this arch. I mean, as someone who used to live in Manhattan and is very familiar with Donald Trump's pre-presidential career, it was always for him about putting the name on the building as opposed to the quality of the apartments inside, right? Like that's what he was known for. And this is what we see at the presidential level. I don't know that he has a signature legislative accomplishment that he's going to be able to look back on. And I think that instead he's going to his default, which is big buildings that you can say are his.
And in the same vein of national monuments, you mentioned this, Brendan, that you're representing the plaintiffs suing to stop this Saturday's UFC event there at the White House. Where does that stand? Do you think you'll be able to stop this?
Well, it's pretty obvious that the administration's violating the law here. And I want to be very clear to your viewers that this is not a fight over MMA or a sporting event at the White House. This is a fight over corruption, which is that the president is personally invested in the company that is putting on this event. The company is selling $1 million to $1.5 million individual sponsorships. They are running ads for companies like Crypto.com and Monster Energy Drink at the White House. And they're having a exclusive viewership deal with a company allied with the president. So all of these things are deeply corrupt. They also deeply violate the law. And so we think the law is clear here. It's just a question of whether the judge believes that he's in a position to stop this.
The White House defended this event, and they said in a statement, quote, "It's no different than various other White House-hosted events on the South Lawn and properly permitted events on the Ellipse and National Mall throughout the year." They point to past presidents holding events like the South by South Lawn event, the BET concert in past administrations. What's your response to that, Brendan, that argument?
This is the first time that a president stands to make money from a White House event, and the first time ever that there's going to be a for-profit event on the White House lawn. And importantly, at the Lincoln Memorial, where the White House the administration's flip-flopped on this, now says that there is going to be a walkout for the fighters from the chamber of the Lincoln Memorial, where they're going to have a face-off. And I think it's just important for people to understand that we are now using monuments like the Lincoln Memorial to profit companies allied to the president. And that is fundamentally different from other events that have happened at the White House and the Lincoln Memorial before.